All right, these notes are going to be about writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. With parallel and perpendicular lines, we already discussed how to identify or what the relationship is between the slopes of parallel lines. Parallel lines are going to be congruent, they're going to be the same. And then with perpendicular lines, we have the opposite reciprocal, opposite sign, and then we flip the fraction. Now, when we write the equation of either two lines are parallel or perpendicular, there are two things that we need to know. We need to know the slope, and we need to know a point. Okay, so we just have the slope and the point, and we can figure everything out. So now that if we have those two things, we can just plug it into the point-slope form, which this is our point-slope form. And then we've got a good equation. Unless we have to graph it, we can leave it in this point-slope form. So we take a look at this first one here. We're going to see that our slope is going to be our slope is 1 over 5, and it's going to pass through the point of 10, 4. So we have our point and we have our slope. Here, the y1 and x1 are going to represent the point, and the m is our slope. So here we can label this as x1 and y1. And we're just going to plug everything into here. It is that simple sometimes. So we're going to take the y minus, we're going to take y1, the y coordinate that we have, 4, equals, we're going to take m, which we were given, 1/5. We're going to open those parentheses, and we're going to put x, and we have x minus x1. So we find the x coordinate, we're going to have x minus 10. And that's it for that problem. Done. Okay? Now, this next one, we have a slope that is undefined. So the thing that we need to remember here is with my previous notes and with my class and my video that I made, we learned about vux and hoy. Your undefined is going to be your vux. You're going to have the vertical line, okay, and it passes through, there's an H on there, it's going to pass through. With vux, we have x, okay, so it's going to pass through the x coordinate. So with vux, vux, vertical line is undefined, and it's x equals a number, okay? So what ends up happening is that in vux, x just means x equals a number. So all we have to do here is we actually don't have an m. We don't need the y1, x1, and stuff like that. We don't even need this. An undefined slope is simply going to be x equals whatever that x coordinate is, and that's 2. There's your equation. Okay, that's what a vux tells us, is undefined slope, x equals the x coordinate. Now we have the 0 slope, m equals 0. So with the 0 slope, we had the hoy, which told us that we had a horizontal line, and the y in hoy, H-O-Y, I'm going to put that over here so we can see it first, in case we did not learn about it. Hoy, that y means your equation is going to equal whatever the y coordinate is. So here, we'll go ahead and put passes through y coordinate. Kind of ran out of room there. Passes through the y coordinate. Positive, you need to get caught up. Okay? So what that means is 0, what that O and hoy means, we have a horizontal line, 0 slope, y equals the y coordinate, and that is all your equation is. Okay? Now let's take a look at, we've got the slope is 1/2, and it's going to cross the x-axis at -16. What we need to remember is this crosses the x-axis at -16 means this is the x-intercept. Okay, this is the x-intercept, meaning that is our x-coordinate, and your y will remain as 0. So this is our x1 and y1. So it crosses the x-axis at -16. That's our x-intercept. So our point that we're going to have, because we don't have a point, but we know if it passes the x-axis at -16, it's going to be 0 on y, right? So here, if we plug into our point slope formula, I'll bring it down so you can see it, we're going to have y minus, we have y1, our y coordinate, which is 0, equals m, our slope, which is right here, 1/2, parentheses, x, we're going to minus our x-coordinate, which we see here is minus a negative. Remember that if we have minus negative 16, this is where we want to remember that minus a negative turns into a plus, so it would be x plus 16. Now, in this problem, we don't need that 0. We don't want the 0. Why? Okay, we don't write zeros into our equations. So here, we just rewrite it without that 0. Y equals 1/2 parentheses x, we're going to change that to a plus because we had minus a negative, plus 16. And there's our equation. Now the question comes up on this next, at the very, very bottom, it says, okay, cool, so we get slope and we get a point, or we use Vux and Hoy, or x-intercept, y-intercept, and we can figure out what the, we can figure out the equation is. What happens if we do not have the slope? If you do not have the slope given to you, but you have 2 points, what can you do to find the slope? Well, as we talked about in the previous notes, you're going to use the slope formula to find your slope. Okay, so you're going to use the slope formula, remembering that this is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Make sure we pause and we get that copied down if we need to. If I'm moving too fast on that, we're going to go to the next page now. All right, so writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines, the same thing occurs. We still have to use the slope, and we have to use the point. Now, we have to go back and remember that we have to look at, okay, we're looking at parallel, we're looking at perpendicular. So this is where a highlighter, I strongly suggest you get this highlighter, okay, or this underlined box, so we know exactly what kind of slope we're looking for. Example 1 says write an equation of a line that is parallel to the line y plus 1 equals 5 parentheses x minus 7 and contains the point 4, 8. Okay, it might be overwhelming. Let's take a look. First thing we need to do is notice we are looking for a line that is parallel. So first we need to remember, what does that mean about our slope? We're going to have the same slope. Okay? And in this equation, we have point slope. Our slope, if we remember from our, right here, okay, your slope is in front of the parentheses. So here, this is going to be our slope, so we don't have to find it. Okay, we've got it right there for us. So m is going to equal 5. Now, we want a slope parallel, so we're going to use the exact same slope of 5. And we're going to plug in our x1 and y1, all right, because we want to go through this point, not the 5, negative 7 over here. So let's start off with, let's go ahead and write up here so we have it, y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So we have that written down again for us. Okay, pause if you need to. So we're going to go ahead and plug in. We've got y minus y1 was 8, so minus 8 equals, we want the same parallel slope, 5, parentheses, x minus, and always, before I put the minus, I always check. Do I have a positive or negative? Okay, I have a positive, so minus 4. And this is our equation. This line will be parallel to this equation right here, but it's going to pass through a different point. Next, we have write an equation that's perpendicular to this line. Okay, we're going to have the exact same equation, but now we're going to, exact same point. I want you guys to notice that. We're just now practicing perpendicular. Remembering that perpendicular, remembering, not remaining, like smushing words together, remembering perpendicular is going to be your opposite reciprocal. So we have to take the slope, m being 5, and we have to remember that this is a 5 over 1. So to change this to the slope that we need to opposite sign. This is a positive, we need to make it negative, and the reciprocal, we need to flip that 1 and that 5. The 1 goes up top, and the 5 goes on bottom. This is the slope we will use. So we plug in to this right here. We're going to have a negative 1/5 instead because it's perpendicular. So we'll plug in y minus y1, 8, is equal to, our new m, perpendicular, is negative 1/5, parentheses, x minus x1, that 4. So we need to see the big difference between example 1 and example 2. The points are the same, but these slopes Our opposite sign went positive and negative, and its reciprocal went from 5 over 1 to 1 over 5. The same thing is going to happen for example 3 and 4. We're going to have one, they're going to use the same exact line in the same exact point, but one's going to be parallel, one's going to be perpendicular. The first one, write an equation, a line that is perpendicular to this line, okay, and we're going to contain this point. So here's our x1 and y1. Perpendicular, we switched it on you. This time we're doing perpendicular first. We have our opposite, reciprocal. So now we also have this in y equals mx plus b. So it's no longer in point slope. We are now in slope intercept. We still have m though. Look, m is right here. So if the original line's m slope was a negative 1/3, we need to change it to perpendicular. So when we change this, we're going to go opposite. We're going to go negative to positive. So I'm not going to write a sign. And then we need to flip that fraction. Put the 3 on top, 1 on bottom. And we always know that when we have anything over 1, it is itself. So this turns into a 3. So this is the slope we're going to use for a perpendicular line. So here, we'll go ahead and plug into our point slope because we have a point, and we have the slope, the new slope, perpendicular slope of 3. So y minus negative 4. Oh, minus a negative means plus a 4. This will be equal to our m, our slope, perpendicular slope was 3, parentheses x minus x1 or x coordinate 1. Okay, so there's taking it from point slope, or putting it into point slope from slope intercept. But the big thing is recognize where your slope is, and then make sure we're looking at parallel or perpendicular. Last one, exact same line, exact same point, but now we are going parallel, which means we have the same slope. We do not change it. Remember, with our y equals mx plus b, our slope m is before x. So we have our x1 and y1 here. So plugging into our point slope again, y minus y1. So we have y minus, we have that negative 4, so it becomes y plus 4, equals m, which is now parallel slope, is the same, that negative 1/3. Then we'll open our parentheses and have x minus x1. So minus 1. Again, looking at the only difference is exact same line, exact same point that it's crossing through. One is perpendicular and one is parallel. Okay?